The 5 components of what makes up a credit score.
Let's say someone wants to get $100,000 in credit. How do they do that?
You literally can improve your score in the next 60 days.
Bad credit, no credit. How do they start to get credit funding?
The largest component of what makes up a score is
my goal on this podcast. Usually every podcast I have a specific goal for the listeners to leave with. On this one, I want people to learn how to raise capital with credit cards and business credit.
Absolutely. That's easy. So first of all, Will Roundtree, originally from Milwaukee, Wisconsin. And ironically, this building, I used to work here back in 2006.
Oh, dang.
I used to sell internet advertising.
Oh, okay.
So after I left that, that company actually shut down. There was actually a law firm in this building that did credit.
Oh, okay.
And so that's actually kind of how I got into the credit space.
Okay.
Is I started working for the law firm. The law firm was helping people with credit back in 2006. Even though prior to that, I started learning the importance of credit before I had moved to Las Vegas in 2005. And so I remember we were selling people credit repair, and I was just like, I think I could do this.
Uh-huh.
And so ironically, and I always say, I think my story was destined for who I am today. The law firm ended up shutting down because they lost a big contract. And then I started working for a collection agency.
Oh, damn.
So I actually saw both sides of that world. And I learned a lot about how the protection we as consumers have against collection agents. And so kind of just fast forward through my story, I started, ended up fixing my own credit, and I actually post online. I used to have a 568 credit score. Took me 2.5 years to fix my own credit. I owed everybody, including the library and Blockbuster, money. Like everything was on my credit. I had a vehicle repossessed, and I actually almost filed bankruptcy back in 2010.
Holy crap.
Until I remembered, like, man, I could fix my credit. Because we always assume that once your credit is in the dumps or whatever you think the dumps are, that it's over. No, all credit can be rebuilt, restored, and repaired.
Yeah.
And so I started, just doing all of the things that I learned from the law firm. I remember because there was no Google or, there was none of the social media or anything like that around back in 2008, 2009. So I started sending letters out on my own, start researching information, fix my credit. Then I remember the very first thing I did with my credit, I needed a newer vehicle, a reliable car. And I bought my first car ever with no money down. Blew my mind because I always assumed you had to put 20% down. And to this day, and I've probably bought 15, 20 cars since 2014, I've never put money down on a car. And so fast forward from there started, I remember reading a book by Robert Kiyosaki, Rich Dad, Poor Dad.
Yeah.
Changed my life. And then I remember seeing an interview of him online talking about how he bought one of his first properties. I think it was in Waikiki. Don't quote me, Mr. Kiyosaki. He said the property was like $20,000. He needed 20% down. Obviously, he didn't have the cash, but he had a credit card. And I was like, wow. So so I started to kind of research how that process worked because I'm assuming, I can just go swipe my card at the title company with the lender, and it doesn't work like that. And so I started doing some research, and I'm like, man, that's how we're supposed to use credit.
Yeah.
It wasn't, we got conditioned to think that it's supposed to be used for consumer purchases. No, I use the credit to go and buy cash flow. And then I create the cash flow to build my lifestyle. So that's how I'm able to travel and buy the cars and the trips and the clothes and the experiences. But I started learning how to leverage my credit to buy real estate.
Got it.
And that's how I got into this space.
Okay. So I'm probably the best host on this podcast, on this specific type of podcast, because when it comes to credit, I'm an idiot. I don't use my credit ever.
Wow.
I don't have a credit card. Like
really?
I think I have 1 or 2 credit cards, but I literally just don't use them. And I only have one because I opened a business and it needed a credit card.
Now is the credit card under the business, under your name?
I think it's under the business.
Okay.
So I have that one of a business. It's like an e-com store that I opened years ago.
Okay.
That it shut down. I just still have it.
Right.
And I believe I might have a credit card under one of my other businesses, but I don't even know. So I don't even use credit cards or credit at all. I have good credit because I flip houses and they check my credit or buy rentals and they check my credit, but I've never used credit cards. And we have a new switcher on the podcast today. Her name's Angie. Angie, do you use credit cards?
Yeah, I do.
She does. Okay. Yeah. Got it. So the goal of this podcast is to take someone like Angie. Me, it's a little bit different because I feel like mine's going to be a little bit biased because I have assets and all types of things that I feel like I should be able to get credit. But the goal is to take someone like Angie and get her to be able to get $100,000 in credit.
Absolutely.
Okay, so starting off, let's say starting off, someone's 21, bad credit, no credit. How do they start to get credit cards and credit funding?
Absolutely. So the first thing we want to do, and I'll take both scenarios. Okay. 21, fresh out of college. 24. Okay. I dropped out of college, so I don't know what age you're supposed to be. So let's just say somebody's fresh out of college. Credit was ruined in college because they got the free T-shirt, free pizza. Yeah. So they got the Discover credit card and they didn't pay the bill. So the very first thing I always tell people is that we first have to identify what your credit looks like. And I say that because the number is deceiving. And here's what I mean. A person can have one negative thing on their credit. Let's say they got a $500 credit card in college, never paid the bill. Yeah. And it goes into delinquent status or charge off status, which means the credit card company wrote the debt off and whatever. They can have a 300 credit score with just a $500 credit card that went into default. Yeah. So one would see that and they would be like, oh my gosh, it's a 300 or 400. So you would assume they have a bunch of debt. That's not always the case. Or you can have someone who has a 500 credit score fresh out of college and it's not in bad standing, but they've used up the bulk of the limit. So let's say it's a $500 limit and they're using $400 of it. They're at a 90% usage. Their credit score is also going to be in the tanks because that's all they have because of the components of what makes up a credit score. So let's speak to that person first who needs to restore their credit. So we're going to restore, meaning we're going to help to improve and get the scores up or improve the negative items that may be hindering your scores improving. Got it. So let's say you have the person who didn't pay the credit card and went into charge-off status. Now, per the Fair Credit Reporting Act, you have the right to dispute anything on your credit that is reporting negatively. Doesn't mean that you don't owe it, but the fair credit, the credit bureaus have to report the information accurately. So here's what I mean. One of the violations on how you can dispute the negative item is, let's say the credit card went into collections and you owe $500.23. But the account on the credit report is saying you owe $500.99. That's a violation. So you can dispute on the premise of how that information is being reported inaccurately because it's hindering you from getting credit. So you can actually find the law, per the Fair Credit Reporting Act, send in a dispute letter to the credit bureaus, and then the credit bureaus will do their investigation, come back and say, oh, this information is reporting inaccurately. By law, we have to remove this from the credit report. Once you remove that negative item no longer shows, and now your score increase. So whether it's a $500 account, $5,000 or $50,000, the law is still the law. It has to be reporting accurately. Okay. Now, let's say the person who has the $500 credit card and they're using $400. They just have to get that balance below 30%. So if they just pay it down to $150 or is far below 30% as possible. Yeah. So let's say they paid it down to, $50. Yeah. Their score is going to shoot up literally overnight because of the credit usage, which makes up a percentage of the credit score. Yeah. So as long as that person has those things in place, their scores are going to increase. So now from there, we're going to start adding and strengthening their credit profile, because when you're going to start doing what we call credit stacking, it's not just about having a 700 credit score. Because I meet with a lot of people who are like, man, I have a 700, Will. I'm ready to start getting some credit. And I'm like, no, let's look at the credit profile. And so I always say it's not just the score, it's the credit profile. There's different data points that the banks are looking at. So, for example, a 700 credit score is just one data point. The next one is we want to make sure that they have at least 5 to 10,000 of revolving credit reporting on their personal credit report. So we want to make sure that they have at least $5,000 to $10,000 of credit reporting.
What does that mean?
So revolving credit is a credit card, because there's two different types of credit on the consumer side. You have revolving credit, and then you have installment. Revolving credit is anything that have a revolving balance, i.e. a credit card, a department store card, anything that has a revolving balance. An installment account is anything with a fixed payment, your mortgage, auto loan, a personal loan. So anytime the payment is fixed, that's an installment. Now, the data point of showing at least 5 to 10,000 of revolving, you have to actually have at least $5,000 to $10,000 of credit card limits on your report in order for to meet one of those data points.
Okay, hold on. So before we go any further,
yes.
Angie, do you have $5,000 to $10,000 in revolving credit?
I think so. Yeah, I think I have like less than 10,000.
But more than 5,000.
Revolving is from a store. Or are you talking about like Capital One?
Any type of credit card.
So she's saying from a store or Capital One. Yeah, so you have that.
Yeah.
I don't even have that. So can anyone just get that?
Yes. So now, if you don't have high or strong limits currently, you can go to, like, let's say a Capital One, or I personally don't like department store cards because their limits are always low. And what happens is banks, when they're approving you for credit, they have one of their kind of data points is called a comparable trade. So if you have a bunch of $1,000 credit card limits, that's the max that most banks are probably going to give you.
Oh, dang.
So there's a certain strategy. And when I'm working with clients and making sure that we're helping them to get stronger limits. Now, a strategy that some people use is by becoming an authorized user. So let's say, you and Angie wanted to build your credit and you don't have high limits reporting.
Oh, yeah.
I can say, hey, I have a $40,000 credit card that I can add the both of you on as an authorized user. So essentially, you'll be renting my credit history.
Yeah.
So you'll get the $40,000 that will report that's on my credit card. And then one of the other data points is you're going to get the length or the history of that card. Because another data point is banks want to see that you have a credit history of 3 to 5 years. So let's say the $40,000 credit card is 7 years old. So now you're going to be renting, and I use that term loosely. So now you're going to show 7 years of history on your credit along with a $40,000 credit card limit.
Yeah.
You don't get the card. You're just having the history. So now when banks pull your credit, they'll be able to know the difference. Some banks discount that factor out, but some banks will actually utilize it in their algorithm when they're approving you and say, okay, we're going to take the average of the total credit and we're going to divide it by the number of cards. And then we'll say, okay, Angie now has an average high limit of 25,000. So we've kind of tricked the system in making her file that much more dense when it comes time for her credit stacking.
So let's say you do that, because when I bought one of my first houses to boost my credit, they put me on my father-in-law's Best Buy card that had like $100K limit or some crazy like that. And it boosted up my credit score. After a certain amount of time, if he would remove me from that card, does that hurt my credit?
It can, if you don't have anything that's equivalent to the data points that would calculate towards.
So how long so if you're doing that strategy, how long do you stay on that person's credit?
I always say it depends on what it is you're trying to accomplish. Yeah. So now if as soon as he added you and we would have started doing credit stacking for you personally, it wouldn't have been as detrimental of your score dropping. versus him just removing you, because based upon the 5 components of what makes up a credit score, the number one, the largest component of what makes up a score is payment history, which is 35% of what makes up our credit score. So let's say your father-in-law card was 20 years old.
Yeah.
That 20 years of history is reporting on your credit report. When he takes you off, you lose that history. Now, here's also what can happen. So let's say, have you ever noticed, either you or Angie, or if you've known anyone, when you pay let's say you don't have a lot of credit on your report, like yourself.
Yeah.
And you have an auto loan. As soon as you pay that auto loan off, your score will drop.
Oh, I didn't know that.
And that is because you are now losing payment history. So when you pay an account off in full and it's no longer reporting, you lose 35% of what makes up your credit score. So that's why paying installment accounts off can drop your score.
Oh.
Yeah.
So what about, okay, so let's say Angie or myself, let's say someone wants to get $100,000 in credit.
Correct.
How do they do that?
Easy. Okay. So here are the components of what the personal file needs to look like. Okay. So minimum 700 credit score first.
Minimum.
Secondly, we want to show at least 5 to 10,000 of revolving credit, preferably more. And we want the balances to be as far below 10%. So if you got $10,000 worth of credit, we don't want to show no more than like $1,500 being utilized. You can't be maxed out. Next, you want to make sure that the age of the file, meaning the age of your credit, is at least 5 years old. Obviously, some people 2 to 3, 5, but the more age, the better. Next, you don't want to have no more than 3 credit inquiries per credit bureau. Do you know what that is?
Yeah, like you go get your credit checked?
Yeah, so when you go and have somebody run it to be extended credit.
Yeah.
And I say that because when you check your own credit, it does not impact you.
Oh, okay.
So I always have to let the audience know that. So you want to clean up your inquiries. Next, no collections, no late payments, no public records, meaning like no bankruptcy, anything like that. So let's just say in a perfect world, all of those things are in place. Your credit is A1. Next, we want to make sure that you have an entity set up properly and that it's bank compliant. So let's say you decide to use an LLC. Okay, it can be any structure, LLC, corporation, S corp, it doesn't matter. So in this case, we'll just say it's an LLC. You have your LLC set up. Then we got to make sure the bank compliance, meaning you got a business address, business phone number. It's registered with the Secretary of State. It's you have your EIN number. Always recommend get a business website because banks also pull what's called a business web score. They'll go and do a search online to see where your business is registered at in the multiple directories, because again, the bank want to protect their interests. It's their money. So let's say in a perfect world, all of those things are in place. We got the 24-year-old, they got the great credit, they got their business structure, everything is good. Now, the next thing I'm going to tell that person to do, or tell Angie to do, you ready? Okay, is go and set up at least 4 to 5 bank accounts, because banks have something called KYC, know your customer. Banks want to do business with people who they're in business with. You don't got to put a bunch of money in there. Always tell people whatever the minimum amount for that business bank account, make sure it's specifically a business bank account. So if it's $100 minimum to start it, a $5, it doesn't matter. Once you do that, now you can actually go to the bank and you want to apply for a business credit card. And here's why. With business credit cards, whenever you're applying for revolving unsecured credit, they do not ask for proof of income, which means you can use your personal, you can combine these 3 things: your personal income, household income, and projected income. Meaning, let's say Angie and she lives with, whoever she lives with, and cumulatively her mom, let's say.
Mom and dad, no men, right? She's not married.
Mom and dad. Okay.
No men.
Okay.
I'm
So
sorry.
you just
Go
threw
ahead.
under the
I'm
bus,
sorry.
man.
No.
So let's just say Angie did have, 3 people that was in the house. She can actually take the combined income of those individuals and put that as the income on the application, because you can use what's called household income.
Okay.
And typically banks and this is not always the case. They'll do up to 30% of the gross income or revenue of the application. And of course they have other factors in there, but when it comes to unsecured revolving credit, i.e. credit cards. And again, I always try to find banks that will do 0% interest, because when I'm grabbing the credit cards and I'm utilizing it to go and buy real estate, I'm getting 0% interest on my money for 6 to 18 months, which will give me enough time to get into the property and then refinance out of that money. But so essentially, so everything's in place. You're going to go set up those several bank accounts, go and apply for a business credit card. And you want to be very specific. Don't ask for a business loan. A lot of people get that confused, because when you apply for a business loan, they're going to ask for 2 years tax returns. They're going to ask for a P&L, a balance sheet, a debt schedule, an operating agreement, a lot of things that most brand new entities do not have. But Angie's LLC can be 1 day old, have great credit, and then she's going to go and do what we call credit stacking. So let's just say, for example, she goes to 5 banks and they give her an average of, let's just say, a $20,000 limit.
But is that realistic?
That's very realistic.
To get 20,000 if she just started an LLC.
Very realistic. And here's why. Because again, they're not always looking at the age of the company.
Yeah.
They're looking at the data points of her personal credit and the revenue or the income that she's putting on the application.
Got it.
And so, of
But
course,
do they verify income?
they don't ask for proof of income when it comes to credit cards.
Oh wow, I didn't know that.
Yeah, that's what I mentioned. They
You
don't
sold her. You got a new customer.
So
right
let me speak to Angie.
Yeah.
Angie, they do not ask for proof. So yeah, no, they don't ask for proof of income. I have a 23-year-old out in Los Angeles, California. 23, just got out the military, no job, and we got him over $270,000 in credit.
No
He's
way.
bought 4
No way.
He's bought 4 properties already.
No way.
Yes.
I'm gonna get Vance in here too. For reals.
Yeah.
Because people need because everyone wants to buy, but they gotta build their income and not only build their income, but build their savings.
Well,
And that's the hard part.
That's the hardest part. And so here's the thing that I tell so many people. How long do you think it'll take the average person to save $25,000?
A long time, I have no idea.
See, what had happened was the way my checking and savings set up. But
What would you say? How would you answer?
the average person will never be able to do that.
Let's ask ChatGPT.
Let's ask ChatGPT.
Okay, let's ask ChatGPT.
Okay.
I'm telling Vance to come in here.
Actually, I had a friend that did save like 20 grand. But it is hard. It takes a while.
It takes a while, because here's the thing we have to keep in mind while you're looking that up. For every dollar you make, it costs you $3.
Why?
Taxes,
Oh.
For real.
inflation, and the cost of holding your money in the bank.
What percentage of Americans have $20,000 in their bank account?
You actually asked the wrong question.
Why?
We want to know how long it will take to save it.
Oh, yeah. It's thinking. Man, this is tough. It's thinking.
Even ChatGPT said, "I'm stumped."
Yeah.
I'm telling you, it's.
It doesn't have an answer.
I'm not even going to say it's hard, but it's difficult and challenging because life will happen. Think about every 5,000 you save, you need new tires. You gotta, the water heater. Like, life always happens.
Yeah.
But I can take someone like Angie right now with great credit and structure her profile and walk her into a bank right now, and she'll get $25,000 in the next 30 days.
I want to. Can we test this?
Absolutely.
Can we test this?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
This let me say this. I've been doing this professionally over 10 years.
Damn, son.
Like I'm not a pandemic plant.
Ooh.
You know, so
He said some of y'all other credit card guys ain't real.
I'm not saying that because some of them are my friends.
Name them.
But what I'm saying is that I've been doing this way before it was cool to do. I can remember back in 2009, I used to whisper to people, "Hey, I do credit," because it was such a taboo industry to be in. And so it didn't get popular. Like I had one of the very first viral videos on YouTube talk about how to get the perfect credit score.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I've been really teaching and
married?
coach.
Because Angie's ready. Joking. We'll come back to that.
Yeah.
Anyways, so fix the credit.
Yes.
Create the LLC. Go to the bank. Get the bank account with the business. Do the applications. And then what else?
So we got all of that in place, and then we're going to do what we call credit stacking. So from the credit stacking, all we have to do is, our goal is always to try to find 4 banks that will give Angie $25,000 a piece, or 5 banks that'll do $20,000 a piece. But here's the thing: on the business side, there's very few regulations when it comes to credit stacking.
Hell yeah.
Meaning, Angie can set up 5 entities and go and get 100,000 on each 5 companies.
Oh my God, are you serious?
I'm
that
serious.
sounds super dangerous.
No, I'm serious.
It sounds
And so
very dangerous, though.
it's dangerous when you're not disciplined.
I want to talk about. I do want to keep going.
Yes.
But at some point, we do have to talk about the dangers of this.
No, and
I
I
don't want
talk
anyone
about that
coming back
side.
to me being
I do
like,
talk
"No,
about
no."
that side.
Yeah.
But it's no different than someone who wins the lottery.
Yeah.
There's a lack of financial discipline. You know, take someone who goes from making $40,000 a year to landing their dream job at 150. Where do you think that money's going to go?
Ball out.
Ball out. So
Ball so hard.
So it's
excess.
not that the credit is negative.
Yeah.
The credit isn't the evil part.
It's the person.
It's the person.
Yeah.
Who's undisciplined financially.
So the credit's not evil. It's the person.
It's the person. See,
Amen.
credit is
That's
just
actually deep.
Credit is just a tool. No different than if I was a contractor. I can't build a house without a hammer or a saw, or just like as an investor, I have an unfair advantage because by the time someone's saving 25,000, I've already went and got another 200 grand from the bank.
Dang.
So,
Ooh, wow, that makes a lot of sense.
So we have
actually.
to learn that there are strategies, and I don't discount or take away from anybody who doesn't leverage credit. I think that there's never just one way to become successful in this game of economics. But let's think about it like this. So you're an investor, correct?
Yes.
Do you refinance your properties to buy more property?
No, I don't.
Okay, so you don't play the debt game at all.
I mean, so I buy properties and I get loans on them, but I try my hardest to not refinance them because I'm trying to pay them off and I'm trying to increase the cash flow,
Right.
not increase the money in my bank account.
Right.
But I'm very conservative. So that's what I'm saying. That's why I don't use credit.
And
I don't do
so that's
that.
why I say everybody's different.
Yeah.
And so I play a little. I'm not gonna say I play risky because I don't. I'm actually fairly conservative in this game of leveraging credit, but I also play I play Monopoly.
Yeah.
You know?
And let me correct this also. I am conservative out of ignorance because
That makes a lot of sense.
my mom, so I grew up a single mom, right? My mom was a cocktail waitress. She was not an entrepreneur.
Right.
Like I didn't have a father. So no one was like, "Hey Brian, this is a credit card. This is this." I'm just like, I'm always like, okay, what I got in the bank,
Right.
that's what I got.
Definitely.
Even when I was younger, my credit was jacked up. That's why I had to freaking go. You need to come in here, Vance. One of our other team members is in here. So when I was younger, my credit was jacked up because I was like, I don't want to pay this damn car bill. I'm just going to wait. And then
Right.
once I got married and it was time to buy a house, my credit was
needed
jacked
credit.
up. Yeah.
Right,
and then
right,
that's why I had to work with my father-in-law and fix my credit because I was just ignorant of credit.
Definitely.
But that's why I've never used credit cards, because I'm just like, I don't trust it. I don't know. I'm like, probably have the mindset of like, oh, credit's evil. Like, I don't want
A lot of people think that way.
Exactly,
But I always
yeah.
tell people it's not the credit that's bad. It's the individual. Or like you say, the lack of knowledge base
Yeah.
of it. But like I was mentioning, I believe in playing the game of Monopoly in real life. You know, I'm going to buy 4, green properties and refinance to get the red building.
Yeah.
And so I'm always going to use the bank's money, because here's how I've looked at it.
Yeah.
What do hedge funds do?
They buy houses.
But how do they get the money?
They raise the capital.
From?
Private money lenders.
Or people like you and I.
Yeah. Or
All
REITs,
all I'm doing is inverting that, and now I'm thinking like a hedge fund, but the banks are my investors.
Okay. So how much real estate have you bought with credit?
All of it.
Like, how much real estate do you own?
I have about 50 doors right now.
Damn, really? With
Yeah,
credit?
yeah.
No way.
Because some of it I've refinanced and
Yeah.
upgraded. Now, again, some of them are multifamilies, apartment buildings. So yeah,
With credit.
all with credit.
What the hell? No, I want Vance to hear this. So we got another team member in here. He can switch because he's probably better at switching. But so here, let him switch. But I want my team in here. I should call everyone in here. But no, it's all right. They gotta work. I wanted you two to be in here because he is talking about getting credit. Like $100,000 in just credit cards.
And 100,000 is low. That's a
Do you
low
have credit,
amount.
Vance? That's why I wanted Vance, because Vance is like this. Like,
I'm very driven.
he's
but
very driven.
I'm ignorant when it comes to a lot of this stuff.
Yeah,
I want to actually see if I can pull this up. I'm gonna see if
you can
it'll
stay in
allow
here,
me.
Angie, if you want.
Yeah, I will.
So
Yeah.
one of my banks, I have one line of credit where the limit is 200,000.
Damn.
You know what? We could be your test dummy, okay?
Yeah.
Vlog this and
Yeah, we could vlog it. Yeah, we could. This could be a podcast turned webinar.
Hey, as long as y'all drive sales to me, we can run it. So, but no, it's really just a strategy, and kind of like yourself, I grew up, I wasn't taught about credit,
Hey, quick break from the podcast. If you're enjoying this podcast, make sure to give it a like, comment, and share. And if you're someone that actually wants to start investing in real estate, whether that be flipping, wholesaling, or rentals, and you want me to help you, go to the description of this video and fill out a link, and we could see if we could work together. In case you didn't know, I've done hundreds of flips, wholesales. I own millions of dollars worth of rental properties, and I've helped hundreds of people rather start their real estate business or scale their real estate business. Right now, we're doing 6 figures a month flipping and wholesaling, and I want to be able to help other people who want to start or other people that want to scale their business. So if you need help with leads, if you need help with raising capital, if you need help with building a sales team or closing more deals, I can help you. So go to the description of this video, fill out the application to see if we could be a good fit. If not, just keep enjoying the podcast, subscribe, and I hope you guys enjoy.
most of the people around me have had bad credit most of their lives.
Exactly, yeah.
I really learned this because of the challenges I went through. And when I moved to Vegas, I learned that having bad credit is expensive. You know, think about it. When you have bad credit, you got to put 2-3 times the deposit down to rent an apartment. I used to live on Flamingo and Swenson.
Okay.
You know, when you have bad credit, you got to put 20% down on a vehicle, a depreciating asset. When you go, I used to have to borrow money from payday loan stores. And so understanding that when you have bad credit, everything is expensive. And once I learned to improve my credit, everybody wants to give me money now from the banks.
Yeah.
And that's the thing that I've always just had to learn is that I just had to learn how to become disciplined with the credit. And that's really the biggest thing that so many people lack is the level of discipline. So what does that say at the bottom for the line?
It says you have an original line of credit of $200,000 originated July 23rd.
That's
and your
one line.
address is. No, I'm joking.
It actually is on there. But yeah, this is one line.
And what's the interest rate on
I
that?
think that one was at 9%.
Is it 9% annually, or how does
Let me see. where
interest
the
rates work?
interest
'Cause I
rate.
don't even know.
So it's a variable 9.7% interest rate, annual fee percentage of 9%. Now, 0.25%. Excuse me. So now,
0.25. I'm
here's
pulling
why
out my
I'm not too
calculator.
concerned about the interest rate.
Okay.
For one, it's not my money. For two, I'm still making sure whenever I'm because I'm only using that money to purchase assets.
Yeah.
As long as my debt servicing is covered by the rents being
Yeah.
collected, and I'm net positive cash flow, I'm not as concerned about the interest because I know I'm not holding that money forever. I'm only concerned about the interest rate if I'm going to be making minimum payments for 20 years. I'm in and out of that money at the time of refinancing. So by the time I refinance, I'm paying that off within a year.
So let's say, Vance, how good is your credit score?
I literally have never had a credit card. I stay away from credit.
Yeah, so Vance is like me. Okay, Angie, what's your credit score?
I'm gonna pull it up.
She's going to pull up her credit.
Okay.
So while she does that, let's say she gets 200K in credit, or Vance gets 200K in credit. He goes and buys 200K houses in Kansas City that both rent out for $1,500, right? Now, the total rent he collects is $3,000. I did the math on 9% on 200K. That's $1,500. Their positive cash flow, we'll say $1,500 in this scenario, right? How long can they do that before they have to pay back the 200K? Or what's the exit strategy? Like, how does it work?
So the exit is usually when I'm refinancing.
Okay.
Because of course I'm buying below market value. That's why I recommend my clients to not buy above or at market as best as possible.
Got
and so always say you make your money. And this is just for me. I make my money at the purchase because I'm buying below market value. So that way I can get the best bang for my buck. So by the time I refinance, because when I'm putting 20% down, I already have 20% in the game. And then just through regular market appreciation, by the time I get to month, 10 through 12, I should have enough equity to be able to refi, come back and pay off that loan I pulled, or the money I pulled, as I call my soft costs. And so there's no time limit to pay that money back because the money isn't termed. And that's why I like credit cards or business lines of credit, because the money isn't termed. Do you know what that means?
No.
Okay, so versus me going to get a short-term loan,
Yeah.
and this is where I see so many brand new investors get jammed up and why they hate credit. They'll go and get a personal loan, or what we call a high interest rate loan, or money from a private money lender, where they say, okay, you got to pay this money back in 9 months.
Yeah.
Okay. Now you're under pressure and hoping that the property appreciate. It's too many variables that could go wrong.
Yeah.
And so now you're stuck in this high interest money versus me going to get a line of credit or a business credit card at $50,000 at 0% interest for 18 months.
Oh, you get 0% interest
on business credit cards. Yes.
Oh, okay.
So now that the money isn't costing me anything for 18 months, that gives me enough time through market appreciation, everything, to be able to refinance out of what I call my soft cost. The soft cost is the down payment, the appraisal, the closing, all of that I'm pulling from the lines of credit.
Yeah.
Yes.
So let me get this right. So let's say we're going to just take basic numbers.
Yes.
Let's say you find a house that's worth 200K, but you buy it for 100K. You have that 200K line of credit. You buy it for $100,000.
Now, I'm not paying cash. I'm only using the credit for the down payment.
Why don't you just buy it with the all credit?
For one, you don't want to over leverage yourself on your credit, because then when you are over a certain utilization, you can't borrow any more money.
Okay, so you still want to keep it low.
Yeah,
so
yeah.
Let's say you find a 100K house and someone doesn't have savings, right? Because Vance wasn't here for that. They don't have savings. They have a credit card for $100K. They're going to use $10K of the credit card for the down payment, right? And then they're going to use, let's say, another $20K for soft costs, which is like rehab, closing costs, all these things. So they're in it $120, right? Total costs, right?
Right.
They put $30K into it, but their total amount into the house is $120.
Correct.
Does that make sense, Vance? And then they're going to refinance, because usually on a house that's, we're going to say an investment property, you could take up to 75%. So that's 150.
Correct.
Right? Are you still with me, Vance?
I think so, yeah.
All right.
So you're going to refinance, get a loan for 150, pay back your credit card, hopefully keep some money, or you're not going to be able to. You just keep it in the house. And that's how you buy houses with credit.
Yeah, absolutely.
Okay.
Because now once you
That makes sense.
refinance, the money is cheaper because now you got a $150,000 loan at a 7, 8, whatever the interest rate is,
Got it.
and on a 30-year term.
Okay.
Which, if you wanted to, as that property appreciates, you can refinance again when the equity has built and pull the money out of there again, tax free, to go buy another property.
Yeah.
And that's the other reason why I like leveraging credit, or I even call it debt, is because it's tax free. So going back to, for every dollar you save is going to cost you 3, taxes, inflation, and the holding cost in the bank, versus me going to the bank and getting a line of credit for $200,000. I don't pay taxes on that.
And when you get these lines of credit, how long do they last?
It can last as long as I want it to, because there's no term. So going back to that definition. So when the money is termed, that means you have a certain amount of time to pay it back. So like with the personal loan, like a person can go right now to, let's just say, Lending Club and get a personal loan.
Yeah.
And I've seen a lot of people do that to start their real estate journey. That money may be termed at 2-3 years, which means you have to pay that money back
Yeah.
in 3 years. Now there's still a strategy. So let's just say someone wanted to get a personal loan, and this is for either one of you. So you can go to a place right now, SoFi, Lending Club, or anywhere like that, and get a personal loan for, let's say, $50,000, which I've had clients do this before. Only thing about that, they generally want to see proof of income. And so they get a personal loan for $50,000. Then what I'll tell them what to do, I'll say, hey, put 12 to 18 months of the payment cost aside out of that. So let's just say it's going to cost you $1,500.
Yeah.
So we're going to take the $1,500, multiply that by 12, and we're going to put that aside, which I think should come out to about $17,000. So we're going to take $17,000 out of the 50. Now that money is going to cover itself.
Yeah.
And
that's
now
just the payments.
Yeah, it's going to cover the payments, and now you still have another, $34,000 to be able to do whatever deal you're trying to do. So I'm always trying to show people how to, what I call, use structured debt. And that's where the level of discipline comes in. That is that you do have to be disciplined, and the debt has to be structured. Here's one of the issues I've seen a lot of people run into, and we've seen this a lot in the last probably 3 to 4 years, is people are getting credit trying to live off of it.
Yeah.
And I often say credit is not income. And that's where so many people get jammed up at.
That makes sense.
I leverage credit solely to buy cash flow, meaning I'm only using it to buy real estate, or if I'm going to invest in somebody's real estate deal, or to invest in buying a cash flowing business. I'm only buying cash flow with my credit. I'm not utilizing it to fund my lifestyle. So anything that I may own, whether it's a car, or I'm taking in a vacation, or if I go to a Super Bowl or NBA All-Star weekend, it's coming from my cash flow, not my credit cards. And that's where so many people get jammed up is they'll go get $200,000 in credit, and they'll pinch off of it and then say, oh, okay, now let me hurry up and go try to do a deal or make a play or make something happen with it. No,
Yeah.
you have to be very disciplined. No different than like with your paycheck.
Yeah.
So, and that's where there's so many misconceptions, or why so many people are scared of credit. I'm telling you, it's really just it's a tool. And once we understand how to use that axe, or use that hammer, or use that credit card, I'm telling you, you can be an investor on steroids.
How much money do you make from your 50 doors?
Because I don't touch my investment money often, because I have my other businesses. I'm probably net positive cash flow about 30 something $1,000 a month.
Net to you, or that's gross rent?
No, that's net.
Damn, son.
Yeah.
Where are these?
Because some of the
houses
properties I actually was buying cash.
Oh,
so
okay.
prime example, I'm from Milwaukee, Wisconsin, and
Okay,
and so
Giannis. Okay, I
absolutely go Bucks.
Yeah.
We're in fifth
Middleton,
place
we
right
miss
now,
you.
though. Right now,
Yeah.
Middleton got traded.
Dame time. It's Dame time. You better step up.
And so I was buying houses in the Midwest all in at 25,000, getting $1,000 a month in rent. So I caught at such a good time that I was getting strong rents on properties that I have free and clear.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? And so I
Were
can
you
remember
using credit? Were you using credit at the time, or you were just using cash?
I was making so much money in different places. Some of it I did buy cash.
Yeah.
But I would pay myself back through refinancing because I don't mind putting debt on my properties.
Yeah.
So
I don't mind doing it either, but I mean, I have to do it because I'm buying houses in Vegas
so
and Cali, so they're expensive.
yeah. So I remember I had a deal that I did as a sub too. The guy was selling the property for $55,000. Excuse me, he was selling it for $53,000. He owed he owed 53. He was selling it for 55. And so the property needed some work. So I put in an offer, obviously did my home inspection. Inspection came back and needed about 17,000 worth of work. He couldn't afford to do the rehab. So I said, hey, let me give you, a couple $1,000. You hold the paper and I'll get the work done. So we did that. He held the paper for me for about a year. I got everything done. And eventually I paid cash for the property to buy him out after the end of, I think it was like maybe 18 months. So now, again, keep in mind, I paid 55 for it. But by the time I had to cash him out, it was like 46,000. I ended up refinancing that property and got a cash out refi. I think the appraisal came back at like 130. So I find deals like that if I can. So even though I may have paid cash, I got my money back plus some. So I only do that. I'll only pay cash if I know that I'm getting like a crazy deal below market value, or the cash flows is crazy or something like that. Plus it had a plot of land next to it too. So the land was even valuable. So I can build another dwelling on that property too, or on that parcel.
So you make $20,000 to $30,000 a month net from your rental properties.
Yeah.
What would you say your debt is on that portfolio?
On that portfolio, if I had to guesstimate, because I haven't done my taxes for 2024 yet.
Yeah.
But I probably have, it's probably about 12,000.
12,000
Yeah.
of debt?
Because some of the properties I was paying like 20,000 for.
Hold on. $12,000?
Yeah.
That's it?
Yeah.
So you could pay $12,000.
My most expensive property, I bought an 8-unit in November of 2024. I paid $433,000, and that one is, I think,
$433,000?
Yeah, and I think the mortgage on that is maybe like $4,600.
What?
Yeah, and it's
Hold on. I'm not saying you're more. I'm talking about what's the total debt on it, not the payments.
Oh, you talking about like insurance, everything?
No, I'm saying the debt, the amount of loans on that portfolio.
I would have to pull the my spreadsheet.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. I thought
But
you were
it's not
talking about, like, the
$12,000.
mortgages. No.
Oh, okay.
No,
That's what I was like,
I thought
what?
you were talking about the mortgages.
Okay, you're saying
Okay,
your
yeah.
mortgages
Yeah.
are $12,000. Got it.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yep.
So I'm gonna guess it's still not a lot. If it's only $12,000,
It's probably no, because I have a couple
probably like-
commercial buildings. I do have one commercial building that's paid in full. I bought it at 120 and 21. I'm actually renting it out to a daycare right now, and that one's probably worth about 420.
I'm guessing it's about $2 million.
I don't. It's not even that.
Yeah, because so I know my mortgages. I think
I'm probably at like 1.3,
let me see.
possibly.
I'm gonna see how much. Let's see how much my mortgages are. But it's way more than that.
Now it depends where you were buying at too.
19,000. So my current mortgages are $19,000 a month, and my total debt is $2.8 million.
So now where are you buying?
Cali and Las Vegas.
See, that's different. See, in
Yeah.
the Midwest, we're buying properties. Even right now, I can get so I bought a 3-unit in St. Louis in December of 24. I paid $199 for it. It's cash flowing $3,000.
That's how much rent, or that's the net cash?
That's
flow?
that's the gross.
Oh, that's the gross. Okay,
That's the
got it.
gross.
Yeah, that's still
Yeah.
really high. Okay, I wanna get to real estate, but first I want to get to I want to stay on credit. I mean, my question is, I've had collection agencies before where I've called them, and they're like, "You have to pay, and we can't guarantee that we're gonna remove you."
It's BS. It's BS.
So what do you do in that scenario?
So this is going back to where I said I used to work at a collection agency. Interesting story real quick. I just
Yeah.
got to tell it. So at the collection agency, they gave us fake names. My name was Mike Quick.
Okay,
It just sounded cool. Plus I was
I
a
thought you were
DJ
saying
Quick
Mike Hawk.
fan.
Yeah.
No, I would never be a hawk. Okay. And so the reason they gave us fake names because, you know, people can look up the address of the collection agency. And they said back in the day when collection agencies would call people, a person will get upset and come up there and want to
Yeah. I get
administer
it.
force to that
I
person.
mean, I've been there. Yeah.
So they gave us all fake names, but all collection agencies are debt buyers. Like we all literally could band together and go to, let's just say there's a company out here, a hospital, and we can go and buy their debt. And so let's say they have a portfolio of $100,000 worth of debt. We can buy it 20 cents on the dollar. So
Yeah.
we give them 20 grand. They made some money. And then it's our goal to try to recoup that 20 grand by calling the people who owe the debt to try to collect. And so they can remove it. They just don't want to.
Why don't they want to?
It's a tactic that they utilize.
And what if you call and you're like, "Hey, I'll pay, just remove it," and they're like, "I'm sorry, we'll mark it as paid and that's it." Then what do you do?
You don't pay it. What I tell people to do is you keep calling. Or here's a strategy. Call them towards the end of the month because collection agents work on commission. So I'm going to call and say, "Hey, look," and never admit to you owing it. Like, "Look, I don't even know how this got here. I'm trying to buy this house.
Oh,
Look, I'm willing to pay this, but I need you guys to remove this off my report. I'm going to the closing table in the next 30 days.
Dang.
And if you don't want to remove it, then I mean, I don't know what to tell you."
okay. What about one of my best friends? He has medical bills from when he was like super young, and I've heard of a lot of people having medical bills on their credit. How do they remove medical bills if they can't afford to pay them?
So I always use the word dispute as opposed to just remove because people think they just magically go away. And so now they're actually the prior administration actually was trying to institute to where they're no longer going to be reporting medical on credit reports.
Oh, that's good.
I don't know if it's went into effect yet, but that is one of the things they're looking at doing. The second thing is, and here's how I say, and by the way, I actually have a book titled Credit is King, one of the most sold credit books in North America. You actually get it on Amazon or the audio version as well. And I break down a lot of these different things inside that book. But in a scenario where a person can't afford to pay off medical, you can still dispute it. Because again, you're not disputing on the premise that it's not yours. You're disputing on the premise that it's being reported inaccurately. So here's another inaccuracy violation. There's something on the credit report called last date of activity, which means the last date that some type of payments had been exchanged with that, creditor. Let's say on Experian, it says July 15th. On Equifax, it says February 3rd. And on TransUnion, it says January 10th. That's an inaccuracy. So you can dispute on the premise, hey, the last date of activity is inaccurate. And if you utilize the right verbiage, and they have to remove that off the report because the last date of activity is wrong.
But what if you still owe it? Won't they just fix it and then throw it back on?
No. So due to now they can resell the debt, but you just have to dispute it again. And this is what I tell people. We have to understand that, and this is just a life lesson. This is something I actually learned a long time ago. Sometimes we just got to put some work in.
Okay.
It may take you a year to dispute it. It took me 2 years to fix my credit, but I owed everybody.
Yeah.
I owed a lot of people. I had 2 repossessions. Yeah, tell me about it. Yeah.
Hey, quick break from the podcast. I am excited to announce that I have partnered with a company called House Max Funding. They are hard money lenders, and they specialize on working with experienced real estate investors. Fill out the form, and House Max will reach out to you. And they have told me they are willing to match or beat any rate you are getting from any lender in the country. So if you are an experienced house flipper or someone who buys a bunch of rental properties and you want to work with a lender that specializes in working with investors like myself, go to the link of the description of this video, fill out the form, and let me know in the comments, did they beat your other lenders or were they the same? But I believe if you're an experienced real estate investor or even a new real estate investor, then I would go to House Max Funding. So go to the link of the description of this video. There's a calculator there also. If you need a free calculator on how to calculate deals, go to the link in the description of this video. And again, thank you so much for listening to the Wealthy Investor Podcast. If you haven't, subscribe. Now let's get back to the episode.
Yeah, you didn't want my credit, and I'm very transparent. I showed my credit reports online on my social media pages, showing people, no, this is actually where I started from. You can see me owing Nissan Financial. You can see I owed Core, I think it was Core Trust Bank. Like I owed companies, but I also show people where my credit score is at now because I want them to see that these things are possible. It may take time, but here's the other thing too, because I don't want people to hear this and think that credit repair is a get out of jail free debt card. Most of the time people actually and legitimately owe the debt. And I have to often say that because people assume if they went through some credit repair process with the company that it's automatically supposed to come off, or that we know something magical. All we're doing is leveraging and utilizing the laws per the Fair Credit Reporting Act. And there's going to be some back and forth. It may take some time because, again, the person still actually technically owes the debt.
Yeah.
And so that is always the disclaimer I like to give clients.
Got it.
Yeah.
Okay, let's transition to real estate. So
Yes.
Nowadays, how do you utilize credit to buy real estate?
Okay. So let's say I'm 24 again. I did some credit stacking. I have $100,000 in credit, and I only like using business credit cards or business credit. I try not to have my clients use personal credit, primarily because I don't want them to get their DTI or their debt to income ratio high.
Yeah.
Or I don't want them to have so much credit on the personal side that's being over leveraged to the point when they getting ready to go refinance, they can't. They're jammed up. And I see people who are novice on this strategy, that's where they get stuck at. So I have $100,000 in credit. Let's say it's all at 0% interest. Now for my clients, I typically tell my clients, let's try to find properties that are 100 to 150,000 all in. That means if there's any rehab or whatever the case, I typically try to help them or steer them in the direction of turnkey properties. So that way they don't have to necessarily do the rehab, especially for a novice investor who doesn't have a lot of time,
who's virtual,
and they're buying out of state.
Yeah. If
you're living in, New York and you're buying in Ohio, you don't have time to project manage a crew. Odds are they're probably going to take your money and run. So I say, hey, let's try to find you a turnkey property, because I know for every 100,000 I need, my mortgage on a commercial loan at a 9%. On the high end, you're looking at about $700 a month. So I teach them to do everything from a mathematical equation.
Yeah.
So for every $100,000 property, my mortgage is about $700. I need to bring $25,000 to the table. So, and that's down payment and closing costs. That's if we're doing 25%. I factor everything for worst case scenario.
Yeah.
So if I have $100,000 in a revolving credit on the business at 0% interest, and I have to bring 250 to the table, 25,000 to the table, I know my soft cost is going to cost me about $250 to $300. Worst case scenario, my hard cost or the mortgage is going to be about $700. Okay, which may be my PITI, because I'm also looking for areas where the taxes are low too.
Yeah.
Because you can find places where the rent is cheap. Where the mortgages are cheap, but the taxes are high. So we look at all of those parameters. So let's just say my all-in is going to cost me about $950. If I'm getting a place where the rent is cash flowing $1,200 to $1,500, I'm winning, because now it's going to debt service everything. And so my goal for a lot of my clients is I want to try to help them to at least get one property that's the value is at least $100,000 or higher. And here's why. And it's really an economic goal. And here's why. For one, per Vanguard, after someone who's worked 40 years, on average not on average, after 40 years of working, most people should have $242,000 in their 401k. This is per Vanguard.
After 40 years of working.
After 40 years, because that's you maxing it out at about $6,000 a year.
Okay.
Okay. But do you know what the median is? $88,000.
$88,000 in 40 years.
Which is about $2,000 a year.
That's terrible.
That's terrible, especially when that cost of living per year on average is $37,000 to $60,000 a year. So you can only survive 1 to 3 years off your 401k. But if I help you to get one investment property at $100,000 minimum, by the time you get to retirement, let's just say, through appreciation, it's worth $250 by the time you retire. You have a net worth higher than what you would have if you retired with just a 401k and no assets. Yeah. So, and I know sometimes we always say think big, but everybody can't think big because they have life to deal with. So I'm saying, hey, let me show you how to just focus on one investment property at a time. And I'm going to show you how to get that investment without using any of your own money. We're going to go and use the bank's money. Those are your investors. You're the hedge fund. The bank is your investors. And that's how I structure it. And so I help them to look at it differently from a psychological standpoint, where I don't want you to look at it as credit, because there's such a negative connotation with credit.
Yeah, there is.
We have to. And so that's why when I talk about my 4-step, I call it my 4-step round tree methodology, which is trademarked, which I talk about mindset, understanding credit, understanding finances and the cost of money, and asset building. I walk them through that whole progression. So first, I have to get you to unlearn everything you possibly have learned about credit, all of the stigmas, all of the bad stuff, all of the myths about credit, understanding the difference between structured credit and unstructured credit. We're going to go through that whole process of you understanding and thinking differently, understanding about the economics and all of that stuff.
Yeah.
Then we're going to talk about what credit is, why it's important, how to use it. Credit is not income, how to leverage it. We're going to talk about all of that. Then we're going to talk about funding. And I'm going to show you the possibility of how to get $100,000 in funding, or how to get $1 million in funding, or whatever the case may be. And then we're going to say, okay, now that you have this credit, we're only going to buy assets with it. We're not using it to go buy cars to start a Turo company. We're not going to use the credit to start a box truck company. We're only going to use it to buy assets that put us in a certain category. When you think about the cash flow quadrant by Robert Kiyosaki, the investor category, we want to be able to leverage credit to be able to buy assets, which puts us in a position to mitigate our tax liability. Because when you own the assets such as real estate, that's one of the only asset classes that I can depreciate but still get the full tax benefits from when I'm mitigating my tax liability and borrow against it. So think about this. And this is what I tell a lot of my clients. Let's say we put together a 7 to 10 year business plan on the real estate side. And my goal for you on that plan is to get you at least $1 million of a $1 million portfolio. Okay. You with me?
Yeah.
Okay. So now we got you $1 million portfolio. You're still working your 9 to 5. You're stacking it to your 401k. You're doing all of these things. So now at year 15, we're going to say, hey, now let's look at your expenses. And this is an extremely conservative strategy. We're going to look at your expenses. And now we're going to borrow against that $1 million portfolio. Okay. So we're going to go and borrow a 50% of the LTV of the $1 million, which would be how much?
50%, 500K.
500K. Now, because we're borrowing it on a commercial loan, and we're going to say at 9%, how much is that going to cost us per month?
Per month? Is
Yeah.
it 9% annually?
Yes.
Okay, 9% annually.
And I already know the answer, but I want the.
45,000.
So,
divided by 12, 3750.
okay. So let's just say $4,000 a month.
Yeah.
Okay. So it's going to cost you $4,000 a month to service the debt on 500,000.
Yeah.
My first question to you, where can you get money that cheap at?
I don't know.
Nowhere.
Yeah.
That's why I love real estate. So now we're going to take a portion of that 500,000 and you're going to pay off all of your consumer debt,
Cars.
credit cards, cars, whatever. Yeah. So let's just say, what would you say is an average amount somebody may have in consumer debt if we just had to take a guesstimate?
What would you say, Angie?
Like monthly or like
Just total debt.
Total debt. Angie's probably a little young. She doesn't really have a lot of debt. Let's take someone who, she don't have. Let's take someone who's in their 30s, in their 40s. How much consumer debt?
At least 50, at least.
Way more than that. We're talking about they have a mortgage.
Oh, you're
car
including
note.
mortgage.
Yeah, absolutely.
I'm going to say at least 400K.
Okay. Probably now, but they've been paying into it. So let's just say 200.
200K.
Okay. So we're going to take part of that 500,000, pay off the $200,000 of the consumer debt. Okay. Now all they have is their miscellaneous. Yeah. Energy bill, grocery, et cetera, et cetera. Yeah. They're going to take 100 of that and put in their pocket.
Okay.
Okay. Yeah. Ball out, do whatever you want to do. Ball take your boo out, excess. Whatever. Go to Dre's, get some bottles, whatever you want to do. And so now you have
Got a tithe.
Yeah. And then you still have 200,000 left over.
Okay.
You're going to go buy some more real estate.
Okay.
It's going to get you at least another 200,000 gets you how much in purchasing power?
As far as like for down payment?
Yeah.
You could probably buy most $2 million worth of real estate.
Okay.
Yeah.
So now, so you paid off all your consumer debt. You balled out with 100,000. Yeah. You bought another investment or a portfolio, however, that's going to service the rest of the debt, and you did all of that for how much per month?
$37.50.
That's why I love this game.
Okay.
So but I'm thinking that far out.
Yeah.
See, we only think about I got a
month.
credit card, the payment due. No, I'm building for the long term strategy, and that's why I hold my properties. That's why and so once we really understand that it's really just a tool, it can't beat you up, it can't cuss you out. Credit doesn't even talk back. Did you know that?
No, I didn't know that. Well, I want to get on Vance here.
Wait, now before we get to Vance, let me ask you a question. And I'll ask all of you all a question.
And the audience.
Let's just say everything collapsed in your world.
Yeah.
With the credit. What's the worst that's going to happen?
You file bankruptcy?
Did it hurt you physically though?
No.
And that's the thing we have to understand. And I said this on one of my lives the other day. Once we've learned that the game of Monopoly was the game, you play it differently. Go back and play the game of Monopoly. When you play the game of Monopoly, here's how a lot of people play. Has any of you played Monopoly lately? Okay, you love Monopoly? Okay.
Big Monopoly.
Here, check this out. I pay attention to how people play, and it'll let me know where they are
We should do that at the office, actually.
financially. Think about this.
Yeah.
When you see someone and all they do is just try to get across go to get $200, what will that say about them?
During the rat race.
They're in a rat race. And when you play that way, what happens? You can only land on somebody's property,
Yeah. Pay tax.
taxes, or go to jail.
Damn.
And this is how people really live.
Yeah, that's true.
Not knowing that if I own a hotel on Baltic Ave, even though that's the cheapest space you can buy on the Monopoly board, you don't even have enough after you cross go to pay me. So we have to learn that. This is why when you learn how to play this game, or just understanding why we got to own assets such as real estate, and then we also learn that, and I'll ask you this, Angie, how many people need somewhere to live? Everyone. So why wouldn't I want to play a game that everybody has to participate in,
Yeah.
or that they would love to participate in?
Yeah.
And they got to live somewhere. And so I just figured out a strategy that works for me. I'm not saying this is the end all be all, but I can get real estate faster, or acquire it faster than someone who's trying to save for 20 years to get one property, or 5 years to get one property.
Okay, last thing I want to talk about is no credit.
Yes.
So our boy Vance here was like me. How much credit do you have?
I don't know, but I don't think any.
Okay, so he said, I don't know, I don't think any.
Okay.
If someone's starting at 0, and I'm pretty sure he's Canadian, right? No. Okay, so I take that back.
Wow.
I could Polish. I know. But let's just say they're starting at 0.
Right.
Like, they're from
Nothing.
another state.
Right.
We'll say Canada. You know what I'm saying? Because we're going to get it. Okay, let's say they're from somewhere else. They're at 0 credit.
Right.
What do they do?
Man, that's actually one of the easiest ways. And I talk about this in my book, Credit is King. So let's say you have what we call a ghost file,
Okay,
meaning there's nothing on there.
that's Vance.
That's
He's
Vance.
also white, so he is ghosty. He's very pale. You got to see, this is not racist. He's pale.
So all we're going to do is the same strategy your father-in-law did with you. I'm going to add some authorized users onto Vance's credit profile. He's going to rent my history. And then from there, we're going to start building up his credit. So I can add him onto a credit card today. And let's say it's a $10,000 credit card, 7-year history. And as soon as that information reports to your credit, you're going to have a 700 credit score as soon as it posts. And then from there, we're just going to keep building. And it may take us, 90, 120 days to get it dense enough to where now you're going to be in position to start going to the banks and getting your own credit. We do this all day.
But what about for people that don't know you? And are you doing this for Vance for free? Or are you actually doing this? Or are you saying this?
Yeah, no, this is a strategy I do for my clients. Now, there's an investment for that.
Okay.
But let's just say that, Vance doesn't have the money, or whoever the case may be. I'll say, hey, go and find someone in your family who has good credit who will add you on as an authorized user.
to their credit card.
Yeah. Now you don't get the credit card, or that's the selling point, because people get real sensitive about that. So you will say, hey, I'm not going to give Vance the credit card, but he's going to get the history. So it may be a cousin, an uncle, a father, a mother, dad, in-law, a coworker.
Baby
You don't
mama.
have to baby mama, baby
Yeah,
daddy.
yeah.
Like, it don't matter. Like, you just, and here's what I tell people. If you don't know someone who has good credit that will do that, go get some new friends.
That's true.
It's like we gotta learn that.
I got a friend, he's like my best friend, and he's got like 850 or something credit score.
I guarantee you he will let you go on his credit.
'Cause I don't even need to use it. I mean, he just signs.
You don't even get the card. Just tell him, look, I don't even need the card. I just want the history so I can start building my credit.
Guarantee you.
Okay. Well,
I
devil's
believe it.
advocate, could he get the card if he tried because now he's on the card?
Typically they won't, because they're going to go based upon the address. So when you call the bank and The bank is going to go through like a verification process and all
Yeah.
of that. So yeah. Now I'm not going to say it's impossible or
Yeah.
not possible,
Yeah.
but you would pray.
But you're
that
gonna do it with
Vance would
someone
do
that you trust.
Yeah.
Okay.
I got a question on that.
Okay. Last question.
Let's just say
Vance.
I was on that card and
He was on the
just
card.
do nothing else.
He does nothing
Like,
else.
Slowly over time, is that just going to build my credit more and more and more?
So his question was, so the listeners know, if he adds himself to someone else's card and he does nothing else, will that fix his credit?
So it won't necessarily fix it, because if it's not bad, it doesn't need to be fixed.
Yeah.
But it will at least garner him a score. And if he chooses to do nothing, if your friend removes you, then it's going to possibly lower his score.
Yeah.
Because now there's nothing that contributes to the components of what would make up your credit score.
Yeah.
Which I always tell people, and I get there's two different philosophies. You have people who either hate credit, and then you have people who play with credit. And I often tell people, look, if you have no strategy or end goal in leveraging your credit, by all means continue to live how you live. But if you're trying to play the game, which is how America was birthed through debt and credit, then that's what I would recommend, is have him add you, and then you build up from there. Because here's the reality. Let's say you have a ghost file and you go and try to buy a car. You may get denied or get the highest interest rate.
Yeah, you missed the beginning of the podcast, but yeah, he said bad credit is expensive.
It's very expensive, but at least, because there's things that I always tell people, it's almost impossible not using credit in today's society. Prime
Yeah.
example. I had a client who she couldn't rent an instrument for her child without her having to put the deposit down that was the value of the instrument.
Yeah.
I had a client who couldn't get a security clearance because his credit had got damaged. And so when you have bad credit, they can prevent you from getting a certain security clearance when you work for the government. When you work in banking or in
Yeah. Loan
insurance,
officers, yeah.
things like that, they run your credit. When you come out of law school, they can run your credit after you go through the bar. So there's things that have nothing to do with advancing financially that is still tied to your credit. There's companies that will not employ you if you have bad credit. So that's what
I mean,
tell
I don't
people.
even use credit, but I mean, I bought my house. I needed credit. I just went and got a new Tesla. They ran my credit, and because my credit was good.
Right. Nothing down.
It was. I mean, I think I don't even know what I put down.
Like I tell
down.
people, and I'm not saying this as a flex.
Okay.
I've bought in 3 G-Wagons.
Damn,
Never put $1 down.
that is a flex. You just flexed on us.
Yeah, I guess
felt
that is
bad.
a flex.
You're gonna be like,
But
How
I've
much
never.
credit do you have right now? What's the total amount of credit you have?
It's in the 7 figures. Like I have a book this thick of like credit cards.
Damn.
Yeah, I posted online like when I'm doing an exclamation of someone, hey, let me show you how to get 300,000 in credit. Let me show you how to get $500,000. Let me show you how to get $1 million.
Yeah.
And it could take time depending on where you're at. But so even going back to your original question, how do you get $1 million in credit?
Yeah.
Okay. Couple different ways, because it's not just one linear strategy. 1, 5 companies or 5 entities, and you get 250,000 per entity. Now, how easy is it to get 100 to get 250? I'll give you an example. I have a client right now. Matter of fact, I'm going to show you the text message out of California, who from one bank we got her $125,000. Here's the message right there.
Let's see. All right, all right, I see. Okay, hi Will. Just received a call from the bank. I've been approved for $125K in funding in 1 week. Thank you for everything. Look forward. Okay.
So that's one bank. So now imagine we went to another bank and got her another line of credit for 100,000. That's 225 off one entity.
Would you go back? Would you create a new entity and then go back to those same banks?
If
It'd be hard.
So it depends. So every bank is different. Some banks have what's called a threshold.
Yeah.
Meaning what the threshold is per individual, not necessarily per company.
Got it.
Now, can you have certain can you go back to the same bank with a different entity? Some banks absolutely, because they do it per EIN number. Excuse me. So yeah, we can do that and definitely do per EIN number. Now, here's the other reality. This was a credit union. Excuse me. This is not a credit. This is a bank that is a regional bank.
Yeah.
And the reason I say that is because most people can probably only name about 5 to 7 banks.
I can name 2. Bank of
My
America
point
and Wells
exactly.
Fargo.
Most people can't name more than 7.
I can for sure. I'm not even joking. I don't think I can name
So,
7. U.S. Bank.
There's banks that we've never heard of that give businesses $100,000 just off a signature. Now there's other parameters that go into place because I had to help her get her data points in a row. But the banks they want to give us the money because how do they make money?
Yeah, by lending.
Lending.
Yeah.
It's just that 1, we're scared of credit. 2, we don't know enough about how to position ourselves to get it. And thirdly, you'd be surprised people who say they want to play this game and they get that first credit card for like $60,000. They're scared.
Yeah.
Because now you're taking someone who's probably never seen more than $1,000 in their bank account, and now they have a $60,000 credit card or $125,000 on one line of credit. That can be scary for somebody who is not who hasn't seen any real money that they can touch.
Yeah. I
So
mean, I'd be scared.
A lot of people are. You'd be very
Because
surprised.
like I said, I got a decent amount of money. If I got a 60K credit card, I'd be like, oh, I'm going to hide it or put it away because I don't want someone to use it. And then
Trust me,
I
anything you can think of how someone would think, I've dealt with it. And that's why I go through the mindset first with people. I have to get them to change the way they think.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well,
Yeah.
How much do you charge for like mentoring?
It varies depending on what the person needs and the length. So I have a
okay.
90-day mentorship and a 6-month mentorship.
Okay. So if people want to go find out about your mentorship, where do they go?
So they can go to my my website, and they can submit a form because I actually interview people to if they want to work with me one-on-one, but they can get any of my products. They can go to WE Management, and that's management spelled out, WEManagementServices.com, and they can actually complete an intake form. And if they want to get any questions answered about credit, funding, real estate, their business, how to grow their business, or they want to work one-on-one with me, they will complete that form, and one of my advisors will reach out to them and go through, kind of, whatever their situation is and point them in the right direction of what service they would need. And so that's pretty much where all of my services are at. They can go to WEManagementServices.com. They can follow me across all social media platforms at Mr. Will Roundtree. They can go to Amazon, pick up my books. I actually wrote 3 books. Credit is King, which is the most sold credit book in North America. My second book, which is titled Full-Time CEO, which I talk about the unglamorized side of entrepreneurship and being an investor. And I talk about all of the many losses I've taken, which is how I got here today. And in my third book, I was actually a co-author with 15 other authors. And the main author is Mr. Joe Foster, the founder of Reebok, which is the book titled How to Survive and Thrive, which is where he took a bunch of us entrepreneurs, business owners, and investors and talked about our stories of how we overcame adversity. And I mean, you have people in there from Evander Holyfield to, the CEO and founder of Builder Bear. Like, it's just a bunch of us in that book. And so, and then I'm currently working on my fourth book, which I'm flirting with the title, but it's going to be titled and centered around how to leverage credit to get rich. Okay. I don't want to give the title out yet, just in case somebody try to steal the title.
Okay. Well, we're going to leave all your stuff in the description of this YouTube video. But thank you so much for coming
Absolutely.
on. I learned a lot. I'm going to get some credit now. And
Angie, are you ready? Did I pass the test? Let me ask that question.
Yeah, no, definitely. I have a lot of questions.
Okay. All right.
There we go.
Okay.
All right, guys. Thank you so much for listening. If you haven't, subscribe, and we'll see you on the next episode. Peace.